Welcome back, everyone. I have not moved an inch, not at all whatsoever. And for Star Wars this week, again, I know I'm late. I apologize for that. I don't try to be late, but with Thanksgiving and work, I've been working a lot lately. So with Thanksgiving and work, I just couldn't get the videos out on Thanksgiving. I apologize for that, but I will not let you down. I will still get those videos up. So here we are, Star Wars, and as the title suggests. The question is, are we going to get any more prequel references in the new trilogy for Star Wars? Now, there were a couple, very small references, things along those lines. I believe there was a Mandalorian flag hanging out of Maz Kanata's place, if you're really paying attention, even a pod racing flag. The reference to the Clone Army was a throwaway line, but some people wonder if we might see them again, or if it was just a jab at the prequels or a reference. And I know there's one or two other small things, but they're so small because the prequels... Overall, I mean, there are people who like the prequels. I don't hate the prequels. I recognize that they're not that great a movie. Their first two are not good movies, with the second one, I think, being the worst. But the third one, actually, I think is okay. But I think even if you love the prequels, you got to recognize that a lot of people don't like to despise the prequels. But that's almost irrelevant because they still are part of the Star Wars lore. They still are part of the canon. They exist. They are part of the universe. So... You can just choose not to acknowledge them, and that wouldn't hurt anything, to not acknowledge them. But it pays more credit to maybe throw little jabs at things, throw little references here and there, so you make the audience understand, yeah, we're aware that we know about this, we know that this happened, but we're not adhering to this rule. So I think, and that's a smart way to go about it, I think. But the question that stands true is, are we still going to get any prequel references going forward into the new trilogy? Now, on one hand, I would say no, because they want to establish themselves as the new trilogy, but at the same time, you have old returning characters. You have Luke, you got Leia, you got Chewie, you got R2. You got references to Vader and stuff like that. You got plenty of references to the original trilogy. So what does it hurt to throw a couple throwaway lines or a couple maybe hinted lines at something for the prequels? Now, I watched Movie Talk, Collider's Mailbag, and there was actually a question on this talking about was the reference to Clone Troopers in The Force Awakens a reference to the possibility that we might see an actual clone army return at some point in the new trilogy. Hearing that, I didn't think on that, and when they actually kind of explained it, it's like, they did lose a lot of the First Order did lose a lot of guys, so I mean maybe, but I think it was just more like a jab at the prequels and a reference to acknowledge them. So if that in that long scheme of things, are we going to see any other references? Well, I guess that depends on what the references could be. Now, if you're referencing some character by name, unless it's Sidious or Plagueis, maybe Sith Lord or Grievous, something like that. Like we see a new droid character and they reference Grievous or something like that. I don't see us hearing the name of a character, or Windu or something like that. I don't see us hearing the name of a character at any point dropped for the prequels. But referencing something from the prequels, I think, is more likely. Now, what could they reference? I mean, they could reference a pod race. They referenced the Clone Army. They could reference the Galactic Senate or the former Senate or something like that. They could even reference maybe things back before the prequel. That I would actually dig if they reference kind of like Old Republic stuff. What is the most likely thing I could think we could hear referenced again? I think we might hear the clone line again, because let's play a little what if game right here. If they actually decide, hey, we are going to return to the clones, except we're going to use a better idea. And don't get me wrong, the Clone Army was a cool way to introduce the Stormtroopers and how they were actually introduced. But if that was the route they go, and they wanted to drop hints at it, throwing the line about the clones again would be a decent way to go about it. And I'm just trying to go by the prequels in my head right now. Maybe name dropping Coruscant again could be an idea. Yeah, name-dropping planets is actually not a bad idea. It's planets from the prequels. And like Mustafar you could reference again. Maybe if Obi-Wan actually does return as a Force Ghost, that could be an idea. Talking about his battle with Vader, or Vader himself, or Anakin actually shows up as a Force Ghost and talks to them about his fight with Obi-Wan. That might be a bad idea. So planet dropping is not a bad idea to go around. In terms of key plot points, it's really difficult to note because, I mean, most of the key plot points were revolved around actual characters, like plot specific events, like Naboo. You could possibly name drop that. Gungans, you could. I take that back. And I wouldn't name drop Gungans because, as much as prequel referencing exists, you don't want to bring Jar Jar back. But no one wants to bring Jar Jar. My friend dated a girl who loved Jar Jar Binks. She actually loved Jar Jar Binks. Like, oh, you okay? It's your own opinion, but I want you to know we completely 100% disagree with you. I'm trying to think of anything from episode 1 that could be referenced. If Maul's not killed in Rebels, maybe Maul could be referenced. Hell, maybe Maul could show up at some point. Unlikely. He would be what? Because he was in his 20s when he was in Phantom Menace. Go through Rebels, which takes place roughly 30 years later, and then that means he's in his 50s. And you go by again in the events of Force Awakens, he'd be in his 80s. Now, don't get me wrong, Jedi Masters can live a long time. Sith Lords can live a long time because of the Force and all that. So, if assuming he's not dead, doesn't die in Rebels, could Maul in theory still be around? Sure. I don't think he's Plagueis or anything like that. Or, I don't think he's Snoke or anything like that. But anything's possible. Maybe I'll do a video on that if he's alive, how he could be alive. Or if he could be alive, and if he could be alive, how would he be alive? I suppose is the better way to put it. Maybe referencing like a gladiatorial arena, like in Geonosa. It was a Geonosa, it was Geonosa. And I mean, trying to think of anything from, because episode 2 is the most lackluster thing. You already referenced the Clone Army, so you don't need to reference anything from episode 2 again if you don't have to. Anything from 3 of note that again, I mentioned Grievous. You could possibly drop something from him. Kashyyyk, I suppose you could drop that again. But Kashyyyk existed even before the prequels, so that's tough. Really, I can't think of a great deal of any other things you could. I mean, if they can think of stuff, sure. And if it makes sense and doesn't hurt the movie at all, yeah, I'm not going to care that you name drop like frickin'. Or if you just say, oh, remember Count Dooku? I know our Emperor Palpatine with his apprentice Vader, and when Anakin was this and that, and Master Windu, blah blah blah. As long as it doesn't hurt the film to reference it, then sure, go ahead, reference it. Now, if it's something very distracting, like Luke talking to the ghost of Yoda and Obi-Wan, all of a sudden Jar Jar gets brought up, it's like, we don't like to talk about him. It's like, yeah, that would completely side. Don't get me wrong, if that was the actual line, why it would be very distracting and out of place. I think the vast majority of the audience would be like, yeah, Jar Jar sucks. So. Man, I can't say one way or the other in all honesty. But yeah, I mean that's my thoughts on the prequels. On the Star Wars prequel references in the new trilogy. I don't mind the idea so long as it's done properly. If it can't be done properly, then don't do it. If it doesn't serve the story or anything like that, don't do it. But if you can serve a story as like a full throwaway line, just like Kylo did for jabbing at Hux, then yeah, sure, go ahead. It actually worked in that sense too. That's the thing. If you can really make it work on the story level and the character level, because that shows a bit of the actual relationship between the characters, then sure, by all means do it. But yeah, if you can't, then don't do it. It's not worth it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Ideas for who wins, what ifs, put those in the comments below. I do get to them. And I'll be back in a little bit with the magic video. So 1 second, or however long it takes me to upload the next video. Later.